that's actually how, I mean, Kill Bill's kind of a, it's funny you say that. Because when I was writing my novel, I was trying to decide what really, I created this kind of world for the characters to be in, and I wasn't sure which story. I had two kind of stories I wanted to do with them. And, because it's Dominic and Lucia are vampires. And they have human children from their previous lives as human. And they're all trying to work together and trying to figure out how to be a family with this kind of setup. Two of the children love the idea that their parents are vampires, and one is horrified. And I was trying to figure out, like, what am I telling in the story? I created the characters first, and then the stories kind of came from the characters. And I had two. I had one that took place in 1977 New York, one I'm reading right now in the writers group, and where the mob tries to muscle in on their business, and they get kind of a big surprise. And then I also had this great kind of backstory of how they became vampires. So I just decided I'll split the book up into two stories, and the story that kind of runs through the whole book is the relationship with the family.
Right.
And I don't know, that's the best way I could figure it out. I didn't want to tell, I thought about doing it like a flashback.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I know they're all going to be okay in the flashback because they're in the present with this other story. So
right.
I didn't want to do that.
So you said that you really get the ideas with characters first, and then you kind of develop on that?
Sometimes. The previous thing I did, the graphic novel that I'm still seeking an artist for, I came up with character first. And the story kind of came out of how did she become this? The character actor was a graphic novel I did. And the idea was, let's see, I was an amateur actor in the 90s, and I could just never get any work. And the idea came of doing, like, fitting in every role. So it was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if an out-of-work actress became a shapeshifter? And she could do any kind of role that was offered. And then it kind of spun from there. And then a horror aspect happened where I realized, I don't know, when it works for you, does it feel like you're realizing stuff and making up?
I don't know, it's hard to describe. I think I know better when it's not working.
Yeah,
I think it's, you know, you do get a little bit of that feeling like, okay, this is something good. I think the feeling is more pronounced when it's not working. I mean, that's why, you know, I mean, I've known a lot of writing coaches who always say, you know, write it. Don't worry about it. Don't go back. Don't look twice. I can't do that because I can write a chapter that is absolutely horrible, and by the canons of, you know, what they recommend, you know, I'm not supposed to worry about it. I'm supposed to finish it first, and then go back to it later. The problem is it's always hanging in my mind.
Yeah.
It's always there. Hey, I'm not working. Fix me. Wake up. And it gets to the point where you just got to be like, okay, I got to do something about this, or else it's going to drive me nuts. And besides, usually when you do fix it, you turn things in a direction that, you know, if you've gone too far, you end up having to rewrite everything else anyway. I'll tell you a story. I remember when I was working, I had a book when I got, back in 2002, I got offered a contract by a small publisher. I was working on a science fiction book at the time called Pawns. And I remember, as I said, he offered me the contract before the book was actually finished, which is, you know, shot in the dark. But I was trying to get it finished, and I was coordinating with a guy online, you know, showing him some of the stuff that I was writing. And there was something that was bothering me the entire time. It was basically, I kind of felt like my main character was going through the story more as an observer than anything else, and there was really nothing to tie him into the story. And at one point, I sent him a chapter, and he comes back, and he said it precisely that. You know, I really don't think that there's a, you know, I don't know why he's here, I don't know what he's doing, and I was just like, you know what, you know, I gotta fix that. And it actually ended up working really well because I inserted a character at that point who's become one of my favorite characters. And this character tied the main character to the main plot of the story, and it all ended up working out. But sometimes, occasionally, you have to, your story is bleeding, you do have to go back and kind of run triage on it. What was the original question again? I'm sorry, I guess I had kind of a Sarah Palin over there.
That's okay. Something vampires. Let's see. We were talking about her character. I was talking about character creating the story, and let's see. know.
Yeah.
Let's see. But essentially, that, and you were talking about just going through it, and let's see. But actually, what you just said makes me think of moments where I've actually created characters because I needed something for this one scene, and then they tell me who they are. They just become a character. I just need in Vita. I have a scene where I just need a guy to open the door.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I typed his hair is white, even though he looks really young.
Yeah.
And he became Wayne, Ursula's number 2, and pretty much a major character actually. And I had no idea that was just going to go that way. It's really strange. I mean, sometimes you really do feel like you're channeling instead of making it up. And I think that's when it feels like it's working.
Right.
Because when you feel like you're pushing it and making it, then it's not, something's wrong.
Right. I had the same experience when the concept that I first started out with the Shadowlands was basically one sentence, Hoffman's vampire girlfriend. That was basically how it started out. It went through changes since then, not very many, but the vampire character in the book by the name of Anastasia, I was writing one chapter for her. Now, as I said, I read, these books. I'm a big fan of, like movies like The Departed and things like that. So I don't mind a whole lot of, especially when it's dealing with crime, I don't mind a whole lot of, sort of blue language, and I incorporate a bit of it into my dialogue. And at one point I was rewriting, and I started realizing that this character never swears. She never curses. And it was just, it felt, because it made sense, because the way the character, in a sense, had been designed is she kind of feels that she is above talking like that. And the way I kind of developed her even later is I kind of put her this kind of moral mold around her to the point where now in the book, she's actually a devout Catholic. And the main character, the ex-cop who's telling the story, is an atheist. So, those were things that were never intended when I first started writing, but they kind of just developed as the characters developed.
Yeah. That's when it always worked. In Tavita, they have 3 children. Roberto, who's the older son, and 2 twins, Vincenzo and Isabella. And in the beginning of the story, the children, and then the story goes on for like 14 years until their late teens, early 20s. And I had never written children in anything before. I was terrified. I was like, why did I do this? Why did I come up with children characters? So, I got to the point, and they just came right on the screen. And I knew how to write them. And I don't know, as soon as I started talking about Roberto, I was able to establish his relationship with his siblings, because it always made him feel like a third wheel in a way, because the other 2 are twins, and they get along just perfectly, and he's always kind of felt like an outsider. And that worked perfectly with the story I wanted to tell of the family. And it's just one of those things that just like slips in. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you just have it in the back of your mind. But when it does come together, that's when you feel like you're really actually onto something.